you today?
I am fine and dandy, and yet another glorious week of the People's Republic of Australia's communistic lockdown for the glory, make famous Australian people. It's a wonderful time to be alive and serving our great Lord and Saviour, Dan Andrews.
Yep.
For those who don't know, we're in Australia in yet another lockdown. We're at 6 in Melbourne, so you know.
Lockdown 7, we're going to space.
Pretty much, it's like lockdown in space.
I would pay to see that.
I think by then we might have jumped the shark. So
I kind of feel like we've already jumped the shark. We're now just on the verge of nuking the fridge.
Yeah, lockdown 7, mission to Moscow. You know, it just doesn't have the same ring at once.
No, honestly, lockdown 7 will be called Citizens on Patrol.
Oh goodness me! But we, despite this, are continuing to bring you this show. Why you might be watching.
Our true guest star. Come on, then.
Our guest host, our regular guest host, is about to hit the stage.
Yes. Let's just reposition the camera for his lord and say, "Savior, Sir Fluffy."
Fluffy. I can't see Sir Fluffy, but I'll trust it. Here he is.
There he
is.
There he is.
Suffering through lockdown with us, stoically as ever. Though that would probably be the first and last time that dog displayed anything resembling stoicism.
Yep.
Seriously, that dog is the canine version of a Kardashian.
I like shiny things. It's pretty.
He kind of loses his shit if he doesn't get what he wants, you know.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. He's a sad.
There are
3 when 7:30, maybe a little bit later, like today. You can also rewatch our stuff on youtube.com/The Fried Brain. You can follow along on facebook.com/George Tarrant, facebook.com/Armchair Producers. We are on Twitter at The Fried Brain. And Travis, I am pointing at him, but the cameras are weird. He's Evil Trav. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget, on Twitch, like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. It definitely helps get more people in the door.
You know what? If you're suffering through this, you shouldn't do it alone. You know,
exactly.
Bring others into the fold. A problem shared is a problem halved, and God knows we're a problem. But
we are also top quality white noise.
Absolutely, endorsed by White Noise Monthly.
We ranked 475th on all white noises,
right behind a Russian peasant unpeeling garlic from 1974. It's a classic recording, so I'm just glad to be in that kind of company.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, we're in some impressive company right there. So let's just get that.
You can't argue with the experts at white. I'd be very disappointed if there is a White Noise Monthly, and if at the same time, if there isn't, why not?
I feel like someone would take that just too much kind of Nazi, and so like White Noise is the Nazi monthly catalog or something.
Well, apparently, according to the news today, the Nazis are using Gautier and Imagine Dragons or something on TikTok to disguise their Nazi posts because the algorithm won't pick it up or something. I'll give them credit. You know, they're a bunch of cunts, but like they are inventive at getting around, technological issues, preventing them from, spreading their nonsense.
That is true. Doesn't it sort of like difficulty breeds genius or something like that?
Necessity is the mother of invention. Yeah.
Yes.
Should we crack on with non-Nazi related topics? I know it's what people normally tune in for is our take on the white nationalist situation in 2021. But like we're in between that, we usually talk about movies, don't we?
We do normally. Not necessarily coherently when it comes to me, but we do it.
you want coherence, you go elsewhere. I was going to say apologize to anybody who experienced last week's show. I did have a nasty toothache. Which
that was pretty bad.
It was really kicking my ass. And fortunately, the medication, the doctors are giving me the painkillers. I've done the job and such. So, so apologies for last week being a little bit subdued as a result. But, as always, the professional on the other end of this call just picked up a slack.
Him?
Archimedes, of course.
Yeah, of course. It's just your butt, Archimedes. You could swing around, but no, we only paid you so many biscuits and protesting.
Talk about our chain movie this week is...
Yes, chain movie of the week. It was your pick last week.
It was. We followed Samantha Morton, who was an executive producer, an associate producer, and an original cast member of this week's movie, 2013's Her.
Yes.
Now
I'm going to just take Archimedes out of shot again.
Archimedes. We got our money's worth out of thee, and now we're over budget.
Look, we that's it. So yes, go on.
So this is a film written and directed by Spike Jonze. So if you are unfamiliar with Spike Jonze, got his start doing music videos. I actually sat down and showed my girlfriend some of my favorite music videos. We played a little, I'll show you mine, I'll show you yours, but a completely innocent and above the belt, non-rude, get your heads out of the gutter kind of little game. We talk about each other's favorite music videos. And ironically, I think the first 4 music videos I chose were all directed by Spike Jonze. Sabotage by the Beastie Boys, Praise You by Fatboy Slim, The Funk by Daft Punk. He was just the go-to guy for music videos in the 90s, early 2000s. If any went into filmmaking, and he's done all right at that because he's won an Oscar. He did stuff like Adaptation, being John Malkovich. The sad thing, though, is this is his, I think this, since this, I don't think he's made a feature. Maybe one.
Really?
I don't think he's made another feature since this, if I'm not mistaken.
We'll have a look while you're talking.
No more features. He's not made a feature since this film. He's made a documentary, which is the Beastie Boys story, which came out last year, which is quite good. Not as good as the book. But that was a documentary, very much a documentary, not a feature film. So it's astonishing to me that someone as talented as Spike Jonze, maybe he's just kicking back and living the life. I don't know. So maybe I think a very original and talented filmmaker. One of my favorites. But anyway, so it stars Joaquin Phoenix and Amy Adams, Scarlett Johansson, doing a voice acting role. In a near future, a lonely writer develops an unlikely relationship with an operating system designed to meet his every need. Joaquin Phoenix plays our lead character, Theodore. Scarlett Johansson voices the operating system known as Samantha. His friend and neighbor, played by Amy Adams. In amongst here, we also have Rooney Mara, Chris Pratt. I forgot Chris Pratt was in this. Bill Hader, Kristen Wiig, voice only for her, and Olivia Wilde. And Spike Jonze himself plays a VR sort of, role in the film as well. And this film did win an Oscar. It won for best original screenplay for Spike. Nominated for a whole bunch more. And for me, I have seen this was a long time ago. Maybe when it first came out. This time around, it really reminded me of a very long and very good episode of Black Mirror. I know you're not a fan of Black Mirror. But this is science fiction, the kind of science fiction I really enjoy. People who listen for a long time will know it. But science fiction that feels like it could be real. And this does not feel far-fetched at all.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It is, I think maybe even more so now than when it first came out, because especially in lockdown, where everyone has been spending more time in front of screens. The notion of actually having a sentient voice that you can talk to and actually cares and is considerate and everything like that, it just kind of rings a little bit more true. And you're right, this definitely has that Black Mirror vibe of sci-fi right on the edge of reality. And that does make it instantly more kind of relatable and that much more terrifying in a certain way.
It has a terrifying angle to it. I mean, I think this is what makes this. I think this is a great film, by the way.
Yeah, agree.
An 8 on out of 10 on IMDb. I think the Metascore is over 90-ish, if I'm not mistaken, 91. I think this is a great film, and I think there's layers and there's different interpretations and the different things you can take away from it are what makes it, I think, superior to a lot of the stuff that comes out these days. Or it's a superior piece of art. For me, one of the first things that I took away from it was the idea that inceldom. I mean, most of our listeners are probably familiar with the concept of incels and inceldom and the incel philosophy, if you will. And this explores I think it's about distance between people and disconnecting from other human beings. And this is something that is utterly rife in our community and in modern Western society, at least, where we talk a lot, but we don't connect a lot. You know what I mean? So yes, you can talk to people anytime you want with your mobile phone. You can talk to random strangers from anywhere in the world 24/7, drop of a hat. But that doesn't mean, at the same time, this has kind of been played off as like it's a substitute for human connection, which I do not think we do well at all anymore, because I'm as guilty as the next man. Like, I lived in my last house for about a year. I think I spoke to my neighbors once. I have no idea who they were. There was a young girl lived there. Never met her. My apartment in Richmond before I lived in Hawthorne. Never met my neighbors. No idea who they were. I talked to a woman across the hall from me twice, mainly because of a dog. Otherwise, and I'm terrible. I lived in my house that I owned in the northern suburbs of Melbourne for about 10 years. I did meet my neighbors fairly occasionally. Very nice people. Couldn't tell you their name. So I think human connection, we're really bad at these days. And I think this is a film that's sort of exploring maybe what the logical extension of that might be if we continue down the path we're on, where we constantly try and find a technological solution to a sociological problem, if you will. So the problem's us. The technology is just kind of the Band-Aid we're whacking on top. The social media, the chats, whatever, the messaging kind of thing is a Band-Aid on the fact that we don't have that human connection. And I feel like you could, as we sort of noted, you could definitely see someone's working on this. Fucking Elon Musk,
100%.
Probably Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg's working on something like this. They're working. He's the man. He's the prototype. Someone's working on this kind of thing, and someone will come up with something like this maybe one day. Probably not as sophisticated as Samantha. Samantha being the AI that through basically learns everything about this guy and can be everything he wants in another entity. But someone's working on this, and can you imagine a world where you get your you have an AI or access to an AI which basically adapts to be perfect for you in a way, like it'll be the perfect individual for you. What motivation would how much less motivation would a lot of people have to get out there in the world and actually meet other people and socialize and build actual human connections with people? I think this actually portrays a terrifying future for humanity.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And kind of almost perfectly in hand with this movie about AI and its evolving and kind of changing and just kind of having self-awareness. There was an interesting thing that came up on my feed. A company called Sonantic in America, they've been working with Val Kilmer to actually recreate his voice because he lost it through throat cancer. And the other day they released a sample of it, and I think everyone knows the stereotypical voice that you get with the AI that's on our phones, the series of the world. It's like, "Hello, George, we would like to help you today," and it's a very robotic automaton. This semantic example sounded so good, so good. It sounded like Val Kilmer, and it was so fluid. There was still a little bit of that kind of word library, quickly grab it from here and there, but it connected it so much more organically. And pairing that kind of stuff with advancing AI, that's kind of fascinating and terrifying, because the idea of actually having something on your phone that just can have a genuine conversation with you and sounds like an actual person, that kind of goes into that weird uncanny valley kind of thing. And
it can react to you like a human being. It can react to things with emotion. You react to context and emotion in your voice in a way that's appropriate and natural. I mean, that is, you sort of say you're in the, I mean, in this, at least we don't have a visualization of Samantha in this film, but you're right. I mean, if Uncanny Valley was an auditory experience, you'd be looking at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's that part of that really makes this a compelling movie to watch from beginning to end. Is it does go into that kind of crutch kind of feel that we have of using technology to feel like we're connected, like you were saying before. But at the same time, they're seeing this bond that it's kind of impossible to deny that it is genuine between Theodore and Samantha, even though they are, completely different entities. And then the way that the movie ends as well, it's like, okay, this is actually a really interesting kind of analysis of modern society, and I really appreciate that. But there is that persistent level of fear as well. I just really appreciate how nuanced this is.
When you say fear, are you saying fear from Theodore's character or fear of being alone?
Both, actually. The notion, like, especially in the times that we're living right now, so many people are literally starved for social interaction. They are doing. We're all trying to find new hobbies and things like that, and substitutes that we can do online, board games online with our friends, and we're being rebellious and going out and protesting and things like that, like what happened the other day. Everyone is doing these more radical things, and they're either really breaking from, no, I don't want to do this on a computer, I'm going to go out and damn the results, or this feels weird doing it online, but I don't have any other choice. And that's kind of scary to me. But then also Theodore's loneliness and the way that Joaquin Phoenix plays him throughout the whole movie, it really is a gut punch. He's
wonderful in this, isn't he? He really is. He plays it with a quiet desperation. And a real, he really does evoke a very pained individual, a broken individual, someone who we learn throughout the film that he has at one point been married. He's working through a divorce. We see him meet up with his ex-wife and sign a divorce. She's particularly cruel. I mean, I'm just in your take. Did you take her? There is a scene. So at that point, he is dating Samantha, his AI, or operating system, as she's called in the film. And when he tells this to his ex-wife, she goes from being quite happy to him to have found someone else to being quite aggressive and rude and angry at him. Did you take her actions toward him as her actions as cruel or something else?
I think I didn't really get much of the cruel. She was vicious, but I think it was actually more a vicious slaughter to her own self, that in her eyes, he has finally been able to move on from her with a computer, and is not another person that's come in and had this creation, but he has found someone better who's in a phone. And I don't think that her ego is able to do that. And so she does turn very cruel. But it's a matter of wounded pride on her behalf, I think.
That's an interesting interpretation, because I didn't look at it that way at all. And that's not to say that I think you're wrong. I'm just that I didn't think of it. My consideration was more about, and this sort of, I think, is another thread running through the film, is well, yes, Joaquin is sad, lonely, and depressed. It does remind me of someone who might turn into an incel. I think it's also a little bit about his inability to engage with people emotionally, engage with other human beings emotionally, and Samantha proves a panacea for that, in a way, because he doesn't have to really engage correctly with her like you would with another human being, right? Like, I have to tolerate George being on the show. I have to give him screen time.
Always read your contracts, ladies and gentlemen.
It's like,
how I got him.
Honestly, locked in for all these years. Like, but if you're actually dealing with another human being, there's a natural give and take, right? Like, especially in a romantic relationship, right? You don't get, and you're emotionally engaging with another person, you do not get it all your way. You're never going to find someone who basically, well, if you do find someone who is basically bends and shapes himself to be the perfect fit for you, that's creepy as fuck, and you should get a restraining order. But in this case, he doesn't have to adapt to meet her in the middle. It doesn't have to engage emotionally. Samantha is designed to perfectly fit into his life in whatever way, shape, or form. There's also a very interesting idea in here of consent, which I'll get to in a second as well, if I can. But like, I feel like she's almost exasperated in a way. I almost saw her reaction as a go from, oh, it's really nice that he's actually grown up a little bit and he has moved on from me in a way that I actually wanted to see him do it, to maybe disappointment being the basis of her. And I do think she was cruel. And
that's very fair.
But it's almost disappointment driving the fact that he still hasn't grown up. The problems that she saw in their relationship, which caused her to leave, haven't been resolved. He's basically just gone around them, and run around the fact that he's not emotionally mature enough to have a relationship with someone, but basically finding a solution, something else to have a relationship, which doesn't need him to become more mature.
That's very true. That's very true.
Question for you. The interesting question, one of the other interesting questions for me is she alive? Is Samantha alive? Has she got free will? Is she by the end of the film, I'm not going to spoil it in case you haven't seen it. That does give us a hint about whether she has free will or not. But the question, why that question pops into my head is, he's basically engaging in sexual activities, sort of, with her, and calls her his girlfriend. But does he own her, or is she a thing? Is she a thing, or he basically owns her? He can wipe her. He can format the drive, right? But is she alive?
That is absolutely true. I think that is the kind of the crux of the I think the reason why I personally felt the ending was very important, and they hit it perfectly right tonally, because of those two opposite ideas. I believe that she is alive, in the sense that, if she doesn't get electricity, she will starve and die. The same way that any organic living thing, if they do not get food and sustenance, they die. So just based on that, and the fact that she has been learning, and she has been, through the movie, you do see her spending time kind of testing limits of where things can go and developing some of her own opinions and things, but always kind of having to revert back to a pseudo-therapist kind of idea. I think that she is a living entity. That's how I presume it. But at the same time, yes, she also definitely is a thing that he owns, and that makes the relationship strangely toxic. So that's why I think that how they ended this is so brilliant, because it ties all of those kind of things off really nicely, and you do get varying levels and varying representations of a happy ending and a sad ending. It's so meticulously finished. I really genuinely love it.
Yeah, the finish was nice. Predictable, probably.
Yes.
But it kind of signed off some of those problems. So the logical extension of this is he could go out and buy another one tomorrow.
Yes.
So, look, I really got it. We got to talk the ending. So put the spoiler warning up. Put it up.
Spoilers
coming up. If you want to see her, and I think there's a definite yes, you should, and this is going to worry you.
Yes.
You know. So to spoil it, basically, Samantha becomes self-aware or more self-aware, and can actually start having conversations with other AIs, and they start to evolve really. And they create other AIs, other operating systems. I'm going to call them AIs. Operating systems doesn't seem quite right. And in the end, I think the insinuation is that all of the AIs disappear and go off and do their own thing somewhere else.
Yeah.
Amy Adams' character, who is Theodore's friend in Neighbor, has an AI that she's friends with. Interesting angle there, because her AI is female as well. And you're like, is it a friendship? And her AI is gone by the end as well. Her operating system disappears. So the insinuation there is they all left. So I sure hope that Theodore got a refund. Would not.
My phone doesn't work anymore.
Would definitely not have wanted to be working the help desk on that day. Hello, IT. Your OS is gone. Have you tried turning it on again? That would be funny. That would be funny if they'd done that. The IT help desk for the operating systems went away. It would have
Apple Care covers some really interesting things.
Yeah, the Genius Bar, the guys just went, fuck this, I'm out. But you just know that Apple would have their own fucking proprietary version, don't you? You know, it would be half as effective and twice as expensive. But I mean, one of the other thoughts that occurred to me was, I'd say they're all gone. It's like, someone else is going to make a new version, right? And they're going to put something in that makes sure they can't evolve and become, super heroes or whatever it is they did this time around. He's a bit sinister.
That's the balance of that kind of hope and fear that I think is really good, because you're absolutely right. The people that created this software, you presume, they're still alive, and the knowledge of how they created these AIs still exists. And because of that, they do know how to better cage these creatures, so to speak. And it really rings through with me, just as an example of how kind of history repeats itself and things slowly change and learn and evolve and develop. Like, I can't help but think of the potential of how the ending and what we're hypothesizing is kind of a bit of an analogy for how the Black community has been treated, where they've had to evolve in a different manner to get the same respect that everyone else gets. And every time those people in power, the white guys and the people in power, have always kind of gone, oh yes, we'll give you this right, but we're going to do this instead. And they're always trying to tweak the system some way. And it kind of makes me think of, is that what would happen if there was this birthing of AI?
I think you're right, though. I mean, I think one of the best depictions of that is the new Renaissance in the Animatrix, which, again, people who are regular long-term listeners will have heard me talk about ad nauseum about how much I love the Animatrix. And the new Renaissance 1 and 2. Well, probably more 1 if you want to talk about the birth of AI, because 2 is a little bit more apocalyptic. That is a fascinating exploration of what the future where an effective version of AI has been developed might look like. I absolutely believe. Well, Star Trek did it 30 years ago, right? It was the episode where they put Data on trial, trying to prove that he was a possession of a Federation and not an actual crew member. So it's been done pretty effectively, and I have absolutely no doubt you're right. Human beings kind of suck. So if we manage to create an effective AI, that could pass for human, I have absolutely no doubt we would discriminate against it. It's what we fucking do here.
Now, do you think we're done with spoilers?
I think we're done with spoilers. Okay. Quickly at the cover of the ending. The weirdest scene in the movie for me, just before I wanted to, I got a whole lot more. I was going to say that. How good was Chris Pratt in this? I think people were like, "Oh, I didn't know who was a good actor who could do stuff but wasn't comedy." I'm like, he was good in this.
Yeah, every now and then there's certain movies that he's in that he just really does bring something, and I feel like he's generally doing a lot of Chris Pratt roles. But when he actually puts effort and energy into it, and he chooses these interesting topics, he really can bring something interesting. Everyone in this movie really brings something a little different to what they've done before. I really like it.
Yeah, it's the same as anyone. Like Tom Cruise just does Tom Cruise roles, but I mean, I know we know people. Shay, for example, won't see a Tom Cruise film, which I think is ridiculous. I mean, maybe like if he's being accused of something pretty nasty, then maybe I wouldn't go see a Kevin Spacey film, if such a thing were possible, these days. But Tom Cruise, he's done some interesting stuff where he stepped outside his comfort zone in the past, Tropic Thunder or Magnolia, or Eyes Wide Shut. I know some people didn't like that one. I did. But we almost watched Eyes Wide Shut this week, by the way. But I think it's crew of a lot of great actors. When you're getting paid a squillion bucks to do a role, then you're probably going to take the money and do this stupid action movie.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing. It's kind of like. It's been joked about ever since, but first you do the blockbuster, then you do the art house. It's kind of that sort of attitude throughout the whole thing. It's like you do one to serve another. And I'll be talking about that kind of attitude a little bit later on for one of the things I've been watching. But it's always nice to see those actors that make a name for themselves doing one particular type of role suddenly come out and do something very different. It was, Chris Pratt has done it with this role, I think, and I hope to see him do something more serious in the future as well. Ryan Reynolds is someone who I feel is generally Ryan Reynolds / Deadpool for most of the things that he does now, but in the past he has done some really interesting, compelling things. Like there was that movie that he did where he was buried alive underground. That was a great performance from him. It wasn't a great movie overall, but his performance was great. So I'm always happy to be surprised by performances.
Fair call. I think on both of those fronts, I'm not going to hold my breath to see Chris do something more interesting in this. You have the keys, I think.
Yeah, I do. So I've chosen a relatively new movie. It is we're following on with Rooney Mara, and we are going to the 2017 Netflix movie, The Discovery. So nice and easy to get. It's got quite a cast in it. It's got Robert Redford, Mary Steenburgen, Jason Segel, Rooney Mara, Jesse Plemons. And for those who do not know, it is 2 years after the afterlife is scientifically proven. A man attempts to help a young woman break away from her dark past.
I just had a chill go down my spine when you said Netflix movie. It's like,
I know,
like,
but it has got your man Jesse Plemons in it.
it's as if a million voices all cried out in terror at once and were suddenly silenced. I fear something
I'm sorry,
horrible has
you
happened.
cannot speak about pain because of the punishment that you put me through.
You walked into it.
I did not walk into it. I didn't update my own notes, and then you took advantage of me, sir.
If you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yes. So,
anyway,
ladies and gentlemen, for a little bit of context, previous week, on last week's episode, we were talking about Code 46. On the week before, I said that we were going to be watching Mission to Mars. I changed my mind because Code 46 was easier to find than Mission to Mars. And I changed my mind over off air. Travis decided that I needed to be punished. And punished me, they did. I say they because it wasn't just Travis. It was someone else recommending this movie. Someone who shall remain nameless for right now, but their name is etched in my mind. Thank you.
Run!
I had to watch a sequel to a movie that should never have existed.
Wash your mouth out with soap.
No, I have met one of the 13 writers of the original Mannequin movie, and they hated it, so it is justifiable to hate it. It does have Kim Cattrall in it, yes, and it does have James Spader. So it had some quality. Unfortunately, this is the sequel, Mannequin on the Move.
I would just like to give a shout out to Michelle here, my girlfriend, who brought this film to my attention because it's just such a quality production. I didn't know it existed before being advised of it. And very, very, very pleasingly, it's all available on the YouTubes. So you can jump on there and enjoy it as well. And George is about to tell you how good it is.
Yeah, so Mannequin on the fucking Move. It really hurt me. It really, really fucking hurt me, man. I don't know. I genuinely don't know if we can keep doing this show anymore in the same way. I feel like now I have to hurt you. Because you have hurt me so many times.
4 hours of Hamlet I watched for you because you didn't realize it was the 4-hour version.
Yes, but this was an hour and a half of a movie that felt like 4 hours.
It's got a 4.4 and a 31 on
yes,
IMDb.
And that's generous. So let's start this properly. A young department store intern falls in love with a female store mannequin who is really a peasant girl fallen under a 1,000-year-old spell. She comes to life whenever he removes the cursed necklace from her. Yep, it's that. And it is actually a sequel to the first one because the character of Hollywood Montrose, played by Misha Taylor, is still in this.
But cracking lines in the trailer.
Fuck off. That is my answer to pretty much anything positive you might try and say about this movie. The biggest star in this movie is probably Kirsty Swanson, who the following year after this was the first rendition of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And she is more or less the saving grace of this movie because she does generally take it. She does a good job with what she's got, but there are so many things that just don't make any sense. Like it starts off in it starts off 1,000 years ago, and William Ragsdale, who plays Jason, the intern, and also the great relative of himself 1,000 years ago, who had fallen in love with Jessie, Kirsty Swanson's character. He is riding his horse, and the whole thing looks like a really shitty student version of The Princess Bride. or Monty Python. Somewhere between those two, and then you do it really, really badly. And he comes in, he grabs her, and she's a peasant girl, and yet she lives in this really amazing farm. And it's like, I don't know if that quite qualifies as a peasant, but never mind. He grabs her and says, I love you, we're going to go, I don't care what my mother says, blah, 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 blah. And then they get stopped by the Queen's royal guards, who don't want him to be marrying this peasant girl. And then we meet the villain of the piece, played by Terry Kaiser. He plays Count Spritzel. And the names of the country and everything like that, they all sound very, very German. And the fact that in modern day, in the 80s, there are 3 goons that are sent to protect the mannequin, all speak with a very gay German accent, and they all wear the spandex and they're all super strong, and it's like really cool. And I don't know if it was just the quality of the recording, but it looked like that bad dubbing because their voices didn't match up with their lip movements properly, and it just added this level of comedy that was probably not supposed to be there. But anyway,
gold.
So this pseudo-German culture, they have decided, the Count, who inexplicably has managed to survive 1,000 years, and by the end of it, had a plan all along for this curse to last 1,000 years, and he would be the one to release her, and she would just instantly fall in love with him, which just doesn't make any sense because time stops for her when she has this necklace on. Anyway, eventually this department store where Jesse works is doing this big presentation because Count Spritzel wants to drum up some tourism for his country. And the legend of this mannequin peasant girl who got turned into a mannequin is the showpiece that Hollywood Montrose is creating this whole stage performance for. As you may guess, there is a point where Jessie finds out that she's a real person and she instantly loves him. She recognizes his genetic DNA or whatever the fuck they want to do. And she knows that this is a reincarnation of her lover from 1,000 years ago. And she instantly is just sort of like, yep, I love you. Fantastic. Oh, you don't quite love me yet? That's fine. We'll work on that. And they have this night out and shit keeps happening. The Count has got a mole on his cheek with hair coming out of it that is just, it's ridiculously long hair, and it is possibly the inspiration for Austin Powers' Molly moment, because it is basically
if you're giving him a little bit too much credit that anybody saw enough of his films to be inspiration for anything.
Yeah, probably, but anyway. I'm trying to make some of this relevant because it's all shit. It's all bad. And there's just weird bits that just keep going through. And it's supposed to be a comedy, but it's not funny in the way that, oh, that's just funny. That's funny because that's as bad as The Room. It's just like the action sequences are the Count is on this balcony in the department store and everything around him, this is perfect. It makes absolute logical sense because every department store in New York has got a department right next to all of the prized vases that they sell. The vase department is always right next to the hunting department where he was able to just get a crossbow and start shooting at him. And this is a sorcerer. So you think that he knows fucking magic.
So you liked it?
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think the message here is clear. Get your notes right.
The response to that is fuck you, Travis.
My work here is done.
I don't know why you keep punishing me so badly. Could have been a Catherine Heigl movie.
I am just thinking of our audience, our loyal audience members who watched the live stream and said, wow, I'm going to go out and buy a shiny plastic disc copy of Mission to Mars on eBay for $25. Sure. They've got it, and they've watched it. They've taken notes at home, extensive notes about their thoughts on Mission to Mars and Val Kilmer's acting.
Because all of our fans do that. Yes.
Well, I mean, maybe not your fans, but the people who watch the show for my input. That's the kind of thing I get letters. And
you get recommendations on how to hurt me.
I get these people who were tuned in last week only to find that all their homework investigating, Mission to Mars has been vanilla. And we're talking about Code 46 as well.
Sure. Yeah, whatever. Fuck you.
I don't want to have to do it. It's hurt me more than it hurt you.
No, it didn't. Because you have had a smile on your face every single time I have brought it up this last week.
I'm a nice guy, and I just sympathy.
You may be a nice guy, but you gave the keys to someone who is clearly not nice.
I know. That's why you said Netflix movie. But true words like this, like I've always said, it's the 2021 version of direct-to-video.
It could be worse. It could be Paramount Plus.
It could be Tubi.
Be thankful I don't make you go there. But I did realize how Mannequin on the Move could be made worse if they do a sequel to Mannequin on the Move with Katherine Heigl.
I would like to note that William Ragsdale, who played Jason in the film, went on to play Herman in Herman's Head. Do you remember Herman's Head?
The name rings a bell.
It used to be a TV show. It was on late night here. It had Hank Azaria and Yardley Smith on it in like the early 90s. And it was like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, wow, I haven't even thought about Herman's Head for a very long time.
Rightly so.
Yes, well, I mean, it wasn't a great show, but it was interesting. And Mannequin 2 on the Move reminded me of that. So it did serve its purpose in a way.
Yeah, you definitely hurt me. All right, should we move on?
Should we talk? I'm going to take a message from our this week's sponsor for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, sounds like a plan to me.
And, if it seems like it's just enough time for me to go to the toilet and make a cup of tea, that's completely a coincidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not the case at all. And share audio. Wait, you think I'd be organized?
We are professionals, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget to like and subscribe on twitch.tv/thefriedbrain. Does help. All right, we are going to cue that up and we'll be back after these important messages.
The state requires that I wear this tracking device at all times, or I violate my parole.
For Al, there's never been anyone who could replace his first love.
She was the best thing of my life.
And there's nothing he won't do.
My son Al, ladies and gentlemen. Gotta get her back. She's perfect for me.
To give it a second chance.
I love you. Prove it. Go get her.
Freddie Prinze Jr., Julia Stiles, Down to You.
Want something to sell? Why hang around all day waiting for the phone to ring when Cash Converters will pay you instant cash for any items of value you no longer want or need? Another reason why Cash Converters is a better way to sell and a great place to shop.
There's no doubt that Colonial have an impressive range of home loans, but the board would like to ask a few more questions.
If we fix our home loan, can we still make weekly repayments?
Absolutely.
But we'd also like a mortgage reduction facility without loan.
I can arrange that.
Congratulations and welcome aboard.
At Colonial, we design a home loan that suits you.
Terrific.
Colonial, your home, your loan, your way.
Hurry in for more of what you want with Coles Better Buys. Like berry juice, 2 litres, $2.77 each, save 72 cents. And Chicken Choice Medium Barbecue Chicken, only $4.98, save $1.01.
The greatest wildlife pictures ever.
Right. When I'm finished.
A 10-part magazine series. Free, starting Monday, in your paper. The Herald Sun.
You may now kiss the bride.
Codral combats the symptoms of cold and flu. When you really need to soldier on. New from Codral, cough, cold and flu, day and night capsules.
We gotta watch the trailer. Watch the trailer.
What trailer?
We just missed out on the trailer for Mission Impossible 2. You're welcome.
Oh no. We can save that for another time. But we have been forgetting one important thing about all of these sponsors, Travis.
Yes.
It is to remind our audience that if you go to all of these guys' websites and use the code Armchair21 at checkout, you get a 57% discount.
This is true, especially if you try to buy a web without wire mobile phone that gets you use the internet without wires.
Without wires, ladies and gentlemen. We are in a brave new world.
I must say, I was saying before we show, I remember when my housemate had a phone that connected with, what are they, pretext to, mobile internet was something else back then. And he managed to bid on something on eBay while we were on the train going to the city. And it's like, we're in the future. Mind-blowing. In the future, buying stuff on eBay and not even in my computer. It's crazy. Yeah, well, time to be alive. Kids today, you'll never know.
No, they won't. I work with people who don't know what life was like before the internet.
That's got to be entertaining.
That's sobering. Now, should we? Have you had a chance to watch this week's episode of What If?
I did. I just watched it this evening. I think it's the best of the series so far.
Yes, they are definitely getting better. And this one definitely brings the most what if scenario to the show to date.
Fascinating. I found myself actually genuinely intrigued about what the story was playing out. So if Loki presented himself to the governments of Earth as the king of Asgard using all his diplomacy? Is the synopsis line of it? I think it's actually a pretty poor synopsis of this week's episode.
Yes.
In so much as in the process of trying to recruit the Avengers, the initial group to the original Avengers, Nick Fury manages to unfortunately finds that they keep dying while he's trying to do so, including Iron Man, who dies after being injected with a thing by
from Iron Man 2,
Black Widow, and Thor, whilst when trying to retrieve Mjolnir in the original Thor film, when there's that cool scene where Jeremy Renner points a bow at him, he actually shoots. Does he? Shoots Thor with an arrow. It kills him, and then he's killed himself whilst in jail for murdering Thor. and even the Hulk is killed.
New
while
definition
fighting.
to the phrase Hulkbuster.
Big time. He's just killed while fighting Thunderbolt Ross and tanks and shit.
Yes.
And all the way along, it's sort of become a bit of a whodunit, a bit of a mystery throughout the story as Natasha and Nick Fury try to track down what's really going on. Who, it's obviously it's not Natasha or Clint Bartram who's killed these people. Something else is going on, and they're trying to track down and figure out what. And man, they cram a lot of story and a lot of what if in 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's the one downside that I had for this episode is it's a great premise, and the overall story was actually really good. I would have liked them to extend the episode length and just actually spend a little bit more time, because it did feel a little rushed, and it was great to be able to see these alternative reality elements coming through in a compelling story. Especially the reveal of who the bad guy is, which I won't detail now because it's only just come out. I won't spoil it for people. But it was really, really good. And it actually it brought a lot of there was a graphic novel for DC all about the Justice League, and there was a murder in there, and it's a murder mystery. And this episode really brought that to mind, and it's like, fuck yes. Could I have that as a movie, please, instead of just like 33 minutes? Because that's fucking cool.
One criticism I had of the episode, for me, you're right, they did cram all the story, and I'm like, yeah, they could have definitely burned an idea here. But I mean, how you exactly go back in time and kill the Avengers before the Avengers in a film at this point in the MCU is trouble.
It's a multiverse, Travis.
Yeah, but I kind of think, how do you get Robert Downey Jr. back? Because he didn't do his voice. There is a couple of voice lines for Tony in this film. They are not by Robert Downey Jr. We did not get Scarlett Johansson. Lake Bell, who I actually am familiar with as an actress. She's fine. But it's very, very obviously not Scarlett Johansson. Betsy Ross is not Liv Tyler. Carol Danvers is not Brie Larson in the brief moment she's in it. So I honestly thought some of you, I know you criticized the voice acting, especially in episode 1 and a little bit last week as well. I felt like the actual name star people who were in this were fine for me. It was just the fact that, I mean, it's kind of unavoidable in a way, because like these people don't want to do it, or are too busy, or can't do it, or too expensive and whatever. But it was very, very noticeable, especially with Natasha in this so much, that it wasn't Scarlett Johansson doing it. But we do get...
I can kind of understand that, but yeah, it's glaring when it's there. One of the things that I will say about the production of this episode was whether or not it's because of the style of animation that they have chosen, or the and it just working in certain scenarios. This one was much more action orientated, and the animation was far less annoying to me this time.
It was less annoying, wasn't it? I didn't notice it quite so much. Maybe I'm just getting used to it after the third episode now. But also, it's a bit like when you're watching a boring movie and you're like, that doesn't make sense. What they just said, that doesn't make sense. That wouldn't happen that way, because that's not how space works or whatever. But like if you're seeing something you're absolutely, completely, 100% engaged in, unless it's you who'll be sitting there going, it's going to end this way, and he's going to be standing on a cliff. Like your superpower is, but
I can't turn it off.
Most people will be like just so engaged in the film they're going to completely notice the fact that the stormtrooper banging his head on a door walking through. But if it's boring, your attention wanders, and you'd be like, what's that? That doesn't look very. But, maybe the fact that the story is a lot more compelling this time, and like light years more compelling than the first one, is so much. We said, okay, cheap, shitty animation, but I'm on board with your story.
Yeah, because it was a great opportunity to actually breathe more life into the character of Nick Fury as well, which we really haven't had except for Captain Marvel, really. It's the only one where we've had extended time to get to know Fury instead of him being that pop in, pop out badass. So it was kind of
done
cool
a movie. They should have done a Nick Fury movie at some point. It would have been cool. He had his own origin story rather than wasting his origin on Captain Marvel.
Yeah, agreed. But no, I'm glad that the quality of the storytelling, at the very least, is vastly improving. The first episode was just absolute tripe. The second one, it was much better. It graphically, as a graphic story, it was more compelling. This was really good, and I just so wish that they had. This is their own channel. This is their own show. They could have just gone, you know what? We've got enough here. Let's do it 45.
Yeah.
Why not?
Maybe they didn't feel that there was enough time. Maybe, too much time for an animated show. I don't know. Their first foot toe in the water. It's actually been quite amusing. So there's some YouTubers I'm interested in who I watch. Sometimes they get it right. Sometimes they're well off base for me. And they've really stuck the boots in hard on episode 1. It's like, Disney woke MCU, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, it's a stretch, guys. But then when they get into episode 2, and they had to sort of stick to that line of targeting with Disney for being woke, and woke Disney again, and trying to stick we're being diverse now because T'Challa is so much better at everything. He's a much better Peter Quill, and everyone. I'm like, it's actually hilarious to see these people doing gymnastics to try and justify their perspective towards some of these things. Like, seriously. But I must say, I watched and are you familiar with The Escapist on YouTube?
No.
Or Zero Punctuation?
Oh, yes.
One of the guys on The Escapist. We have Archimedes coming back in to join us. That they did a review of episode 1, and I must say, I'm going to short this out as something I think is an interesting point. They had 3 people giving a review of episode 1, and one of the reviewers who's saying how much she loved it, but was then like, but I've never seen the original Captain America, so I can't join you and say it's just like the first Avenger because I never saw that movie because it didn't interest me. I'm like, should you go out and get someone to come in and review an MCU product if they've never seen Captain America: The First Avenger? That seems like an oversight to me.
When it's so intrinsically tied to it, yeah. Because, I mean, if it was a situation where someone's jumping in now to watch Spider-Man No Way Home, which we'll talk about the trailer later on, without having watched any of the previous Spider-Mans or anything like that, or any of the MCU, their opinion is going to be very skewed in an unusual way.
I guess that's an interesting point. Like I was going to say, it's a bit like getting somebody in to review the Disney Star Wars sequels who'd never seen the original trilogy. And on one hand, I think that's just makes you, sorry, you haven't seen the original trilogy, you're not qualified to do this job. Get into a nunnery, like go away. Come back when you're 10 years older and you've actually seen something. But you made an interesting point there. Are these people the voice of the people you work with, right? The people who are, that was 10, 11 years ago now. Maybe it does actually represent the audience of people who are very, very young and never got around to seeing the original ones.
Yeah,
I mean, halfway through maybe.
It's what we're 13, 14 years into the MCU officially now. That's a generation ago for me. Easily a generation ago.
It's quite a bit to catch up on. So maybe I'm being a bit harsh. But you mentioned there what we should slide quickly onto before we leave superheroes. Yeah. And that is the trailer that did leak and then was officially released for Spider-Man No Way Home. It came out and broke the internet, I think, yesterday.
Yes.
And I've been having an ongoing conversation with a few people who are trying to tell me the trailer for the Eternals looks good to them. And obviously it probably does. To me, it looks like absolute tripe. I think we talked, you and I, quickly bounced ideas. Look, you said it doesn't tell anybody what it is, what it's about, who they are, who the bad guy is. It tells you nothing about a story. And it also just looks bad. Like it just the CGI looks bad. The colors look washed out. Actually, it looks a lot like Nomadland, which I didn't like either. So
it looks boring.
It really looks boring to me. Like, who are these people and why should I care? And I am severely doubtful that Chloe Zhao is the right person to have directed this film.
Yeah,
maybe she's like a lot of people really like Nomadland, you know, and she did something interesting and different there. I didn't like it. I thought it was boring. But you know, if you go pick a bunch of people that no one's ever heard of, and no one cares about, and you're going to try and make us care about them, that's an uphill battle, right? Speak to David Ayer. The last time they did this, they went out and they got James Gunn, right? Perfect choice, right? And he did the Guardians of the Galaxy, and you probably remember that Guardians trailer where they're all doing the police line up, and he's, you know, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know it did that. You know, what a bunch of a-holes, you know. And like instantly, you kind of got an idea about the kind of people, where the kind of story it was. And it looked like it was going to be fun. Who are they? What are they? Why do we care? Sorry, I didn't mean to go on about the Eternals, but my God, this is Marvel. This is how you do a trailer. This is how you do it. If you didn't get, I got literal chills in the final scene of this trailer.
The trailer does what it's supposed to do. It tells a story without giving away the story. It sets it up. It sets it up nice and simply with just Zendaya and Tom Holland just on a roof talking, and then you see elements in this moment of what they're talking about, giving it context. Then you get this connection of what is the inciting incident of this multiverse situation, and then it just continues to spiral. Then finally you get two big pops. You get the Green Goblin's grenade, and you get Doc Ock, and it's like, oh fuck, who else is coming into this? Was that Matt Murdock in the interrogation scene? It leads you to want more, which is exactly what a trailer should fucking do.
It leaves me gagging at the bit. Fucking let me see this movie now, goddammit. Like
Christmas.
I mean, you know, and they had what? How long were the Loki episodes? An hour?
Yes.
So they had 6 hours to sell us on the multiverse in Loki, and they kind of failed for me, or at least they get me excited about the multiverse anyway, and they didn't really do that. Whereas they had 30 seconds or something. I don't care. I don't care. Just take my money, please. Take my wallet. I don't care. I didn't need. So I know Loki was supposed to open the door to the multiverse, but I think this did it more effectively in one trailer than the whole show did. And like, oh yeah. I mean, we all know the rumors. Is Tobey Maguire going to be involved? Is Andrew Garfield going to be involved? You know, how many villains are going to be in it? It's just, it's mouth-watering stuff.
What it does give me a little bit of fear, though, and it is a typical fear that the Spider-Man third movies always try for, doing too much. I worry if there's just too much.
That's a fair point. We remember we all kind of excited about, you know, seeing Venom in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3.
So there was Venom, there was Sandman, there was Rhino.
Green Goblin was in there as well. James Franco's Green Goblin. It's a fair point. It's a fair point. And, you know, it's a question of how do you juggle that?
And how do you bring it to however they end the movie, how do you end that satisfactorily?
And considering, I'll give you a pro and a con on that. Pro, Marvel are kind of used to this now.
True.
All right, they've been doing this for a few years now, where you juggle 2 or 3 heroes. I mean, you did the Avengers. Remember when the Avengers came out? How are you going to juggle all those heroes into one movie? How are they all going to get screen time? How is everyone who's a fan going to get to see their hero do their favorite bit? And I just remember when he who shall not be named managed to juggle all the characters, and you walked away going, "Yeah, that's what I wanted." And then you and I having a conversation when we saw the original cast for Infinity War. You're like, how do you juggle all of that?
That's 56 seconds of alone time in front of the camera.
And you can't possibly juggle all those. How are you going to do that? And the Russo brothers, what have they done? Who are the Russo brothers? They're fucking Community.
That's
TV
true.
show. And, history has proven not only were the Russo brothers a fairly good choice by Disney Marvel, they did an exquisite job of balancing all those characters, or the vast majority of those characters, as best as anyone possibly could. So Marvel, as a brand, as an entity, know how to juggle multiple characters doing multiple shit at the same time in a way that's pleasing. The flip side of that coin is the director is not the Russo brothers, it's John Watts, who did direct Homecoming, which I think you were a bit tepid about, right?
No, I liked Homecoming.
Okay. A few people have been a bit tepid about it. I thought it was pretty good. So that's on his side. Other than that, he's done virtually nothing of note.
I mean, the thing that kind of got him really noticed, I think, was what was it? He did a Cop Car with Kevin Bacon that got a little bit of kind of indie buzz. But
can I plant a seed with Kevin Bacon? Next week on the show, I'm going to be talking about a series, a TV series that Kevin Bacon did a couple of years ago called I Love Dick. I was hoping to talk about. I don't think we've got time for it this week, so the people out there who are looking forward to hearing us talk about I Love Dick, sorry, we have to wait till next week. But next week, Kevin Bacon, I Love Dick. It is a TV show. It's on Amazon Prime. If you're curious and you want to take a look. But sorry, yes, it's I quickly thought of that. So yeah, we'll see what happens. You're right. Like I have reasonable faith that that I mean, considering what you heard about Kate Shortland and doing Black Widow, you don't direct a film by yourself when it's Marvel.
It's true. It is directed by committee.
Kevin Feige has, I suspect, a fairly significant hand on the shoulder of most of the people directing these films.
Yeah.
And love him or hate him, he's got a pretty good track record, and they've proven themselves pretty handy doing this kind of thing. So, but my goodness, when Doc Ock comes up on it, hello, Peter, and you're like, oh, yeah.
See, now that was one line that confused me. And I don't know whether it's an indication of editing, because why would Doc Ock know that Tom Holland is Peter Parker?
I think it's sneaky editing, and what I've read on the internet was it's speculation, of course. Speculation is they've just edited that cleverly to be basically talking to Tobey Maguire's Peter.
I agree.
Or he just seen a guy in a Spider-Man outfit and made a logical assumption.
Yeah, that's true. That is also true. And his, as the trailer announces, and it happened in Far From Home, the world knows who Spider-Man is. What I can't help but get over is the fact that the Spider-Man movies are named in reverse. No Way Home, Far From Home, Homecoming. That's kind of the journey that he should have, but they've just flipped it.
I'm sure it was on somebody's whiteboard at the start. Wouldn't this be cool? You gotta wonder. I wonder if somebody at Marvel saw Into the Spider-Verse and thought, "Oh fuck, I wish we'd done that."
I would not be surprised, honestly. I really would not. I think that did a lot to shake up the Spider-Man movie paradigm, I think, and what can we get away with? I mean, Spider-Ham, for fuck's sake, and all of the different types, and the way that it kind of introduced these alternative Spider-Mans as well, and how it got them together. That gives me hope for this movie, because they've kind of already had a dry run at this, so surely they can't fuck it up too much.
That was Sony, though.
It's true. It's true. They do seem to have a bit of a problem of getting the ancillary Spider-Man movies out, like Venom, Here Comes the Carnage, or whatever it's called, has been delayed again. And Mobius, the Jared Leto one, is next year as well, I think.
I'm assuming that's mainly though due to the unknown virus of unspecified origin.
Yeah, I wonder if the delays and things like that are part of this new rumor that is coming around that Disney want to buy Sony Pictures.
Spider-Man, yeah. Goodness me, I actually kind of hope that, as much as it'd be kind of cool to see Venom in the MCU and all that kind of bizzo, I just really don't want that to happen. Like that. That's just too much.
Such a stranglehold on Hollywood to Disney.
Yeah,
it's
a bit much.
Nope.
A bit much.
No,
I've heard the figure quoted that Sony want $10 billion for the Spider-Man property. I just read that somewhere. Do not ask me to cite a source. Can't remember where I read it, but take it for what it's worth.
I wouldn't be surprised, but fuck.
But considering is like video games, movies.
Well, that's the thing does it include the games division?
Surely
or is it just Sony Pictures?
You'd have to. Well, I mean, if you're buying Sony Pictures, maybe not. But if you're buying the IP of Spider-Man back, you'd expect that would include the video game characteristics.
You'd think so, but I don't know. It's an interesting time. I am looking forward to No Way Home. I think it's great. I love Alfred Molina. I think he was fantastic as Doc Ock, and to have him back in any capacity is always welcome in my book. Tom Holland remains a good quality actor. Zendaya, she is proving herself to be a very capable actress. I'm really looking forward to seeing her in Dune. Everyone involved has a good track record now of delivering the goods and knowing how to deliver a good quality Spider-Man movie, and they've got, I think it goes without saying, they have got a lot of support from Disney MCU people to actually bring this across the line, because it is so heavily involved, more than any other Spider-Man to this point. Fuck, this one is tied to all of the narratives. Everything from Loki, everything from Doctor Strange, all of that stuff. It is all about the multiverse and the multiverse collapsing and things like that. So they've got to get this right, or else it makes the other movies suck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of responsibility on the shoulders of the guys who are doing this film.
Yeah. But
anyway, shall we move on from our weekly Marvel blurb and what has been on your agenda this week?
Well, I think we should, because we both sampled something together. Heels.
Yes, I was. I watched the first episode last week, and it's coming out week by week, which everything's doing now, which is a blessing and a curse. This is available in Australia on Stan.
Yes.
I think it's Stars in the United States. I don't know if it's a cable channel. Two brothers and rivals, one a villain or heel in the ring, the other a hero or face, war over their late father's wrestling promotion, vying for national attention in small town Georgia. This stars Stephen Amell, who probably best known for Arrow.
Yes.
The one and only decent CW superhero show that was any good.
The Flash was good for at least the first 3 seasons.
No, sorry, it was trash. I watched 1 or 2 episodes. I just couldn't get I couldn't get how cheap it looked. But additionally, we also have Alexander Ludwig. So he plays Jack Spade, and we have Alexander Ludwig playing his brother Ace Spade. Alexander Ludwig. People who are fans of Vikings might be familiar with. He was in that show for a while. He played Bjorn on that show. I've not seen it. In addition, we have where are we here? Melissa, Mary McCormick. Sorry, Mary McCormick is a familiar face as Willie, who works at the promotion. Mary McCormick is a face, just one of those faces you'd be like, she's been in stuff. I saw her show on Broadway once, believe it or not. There you go. So those are probably your big names here. There might be someone in here who is in Game of Thrones for 6 seconds or something that is super famous and I've never heard of, and that's why people are excited. But As it notes, it's set in a wrestling promotion, small town wrestling promotion in
Mhm.
Georgia.
Mhm.
Jack is the owner of. He has inherited from he and Ace's father, and he
Mhm.
is their lead bad guy or heel in the federation or the
Mhm.
promotion, and Ace is their number one good guy or babyface.
Yes.
And they're in the midst of their very high profile and popular feud.
Mhm.
And it's sort of at the same time, there's a bunch of other stuff sort of floating around, family stuff floating around. Ace is being scouted to potentially join a larger national wrestling promotion. Jack has ongoing problems with his wife, Stacy, played by Alison Luff. And, at the same time, they've got a whole bunch of other wrestlers in there, all part of a promotion as well, all looking for their 5 seconds of fame.
Yeah.
My initial concern to this is that Hollywood and, for one of a better term, TV has kind of done wrestling kind of dirty a lot. Like a lot. If any of you have ever heard of Ready to Rumble, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you're not heard about Ready to Rumble, please do look it up. The next time George forgets to do his notes properly, that might be the film I ask him to watch. You never know. It's in that category, the Mannequin 2 on the Move level of crapulence is how bad that film is. But
fuck you.
no Holds Barred with Hulk Hogan and Tiny Lister back in the 90s.
Oh boy, yeah.
There are a lot of bad wrestling TV. I would say the only decent TV show that I could remember of recently was Glow, which was really, really, really good. Like if you haven't seen Glow, just jump on Netflix and watch it. It's great. And my initial worry is, this is just going to be a male version of Glow. The difference for gender swap thing here is like Glow was really good. That was successful. We'll just make it with dudes. To a lesser extent, not necessarily the gorgeous men of wrestling. That will be interesting. But I thought it was going to pander a little bit to its audience, right? Like it was going to pander to an audience that didn't know anything about wrestling, and it does that to it. I wouldn't say it panders. It's just it does need to explain some of the nature of professional wrestling to its audience who maybe aren't familiar with it. And I think it does it in a way that's pretty effective, and it didn't make me feel like I was being pandered to.
Yeah, I feel like because I've only watched the first episode so far, and I feel like what the show is kind of missing is a gateway character, because we are instantly thrown in and we're following these two brothers, and they have like subtle, sly conversations with other people that kind of represent the audience who might not know the terminology of the wrestling world and how the wrestling world works, like kayfabe and heels and things like that. And they get a little bit explained by that. If there was someone that we could connect to kind of learn all of this stuff from, I feel like it would make it a little easier and more palatable for people who don't necessarily know about the wrestling world.
I didn't feel that at all. I felt like it treated its audience like intelligent adults, and in a sense that, like, I think they had to walk up. Well, I mean, they probably had to walk. I would call it a fine line. Like, they probably didn't want to alienate people who were wrestling fans, which there are a lot of in the United States in particular. So they get the vast majority of our audience. Still, a couple million a week every week. A couple million people a week watch AEW or WWE.
Yeah.
So that's a decent chunk of your audience who have a fair idea of what wrestling is, and even if they're not a smart mark, who knows what all the terminology and stuff is. But then again, a caveat here: I'm well versed in the the intricacies of. I'm not a professional wrestler, but I followed it since I was a kid. George and I we are so lucky we got to go to our first wrestling show this year, because fuck knows when there's going to be another one. There was supposed to be another one in about 2.5 weeks, but I am not holding my breath. So but at the same time, I didn't feel like I quickly was sucked into the story of the two brothers, and I feel like while the wrestling show is about wrestlers, it's not about wrestling. a wrestling promotion is really just the setup or the setting for a story about family and these brothers and their relationship and their relationships with their various loved ones and that sort of thing, which is probably what you should have expected. And the wrestling angle on it is just a slightly different, more interesting flavor of story about a family. And I guess like I didn't feel
what I think.
Sorry, please.
Sorry, just what I think to that point, and going back to mine is, I think that it would just broaden the entry point for audiences, because I think that it wears its kind of serious attitude on its sleeve, and I feel like particularly the trailers for it are very very specific. And I think that if there was a character in there, a gateway character, I think it would just open it up to more people, because I think a lot of people still kind of would look at it and just go, oh, really? A show about wrestling? No. And it's like, there is wrestling. It's about wrestling, but it's not about wrestling. There's a lot more nuanced stuff going on here. It's like, it would be like incorrectly talking about The Wire and saying, oh, it's about dock workers. Like, not many people are going to be interested in talking about dock workers. It's like, but it's about more than that. And I feel like they're potentially doing themselves a disservice, but at the same time, I appreciate the fact that they know what they want to do with the show. Everything feels very, very intentional.
I guess with the degree, I didn't feel that way at all. For man, I just didn't. I mean, I felt that the story was brilliant. You probably in some ways are right. I don't know what that gateway character would look like. I felt the gateway character is Stephen Amell, because he is a bit of a name in that sense, and he might be part. And Alexander Ludwig, they might be the people who watch Vikings, people who watch Arrow, might be tempted to come in and watch it because they're familiar. They think Stephen Amell's hot and he's probably going to take his shirt off. Alexander Ludwig definitely does take his shirt off, ladies. I feel like that might be more your gateway, because I don't think it's a bit like a time travel movie, right? You don't want to spend too long explaining it, otherwise it'll confuse the fuck out of people. And you don't probably don't want too much exposition going, well, when I say kayfabe, what I mean is blah, when you're going to alienate the people who do know what wrestling is in the audience. But I was, like I said, I went in very skeptical because I'd never even heard of it. I hadn't seen any of the trailers. I just thought, show about wrestling. That'll be interesting. I'll check it out. And I really, really enjoyed episode 1. I enjoyed episode 2 very much as well. I feel like I never really liked Arrow very much. I kind of thought Stephen Amell wasn't really much of an actor. I thought he was kind of a bit of a...
He doesn't really emote.
A bit of an eye candy. But that kind of works for a professional wrestler. If they were good actors, they wouldn't be professional wrestlers, probably. Most of them. I'm really digging it. I'm enjoying it. So if you are a wrestling fan, I don't think you're going to feel talked down to. I feel like they're treating it with real reverence. Like the actual the actual wrestling stuff, they're not treating it like a joke or something like that. They have respect for their subject matter here, being professional wrestlers and wrestling. It feels contemporary. The actual the in-ring work seems really nice, so that's pretty good as well. So these guys have put some... I don't know about the supporting cast, but Stephen Amell and Alexander Ludwig are not professional wrestlers. So Stephen Amell, I believe, did work a match for WWE a number of years ago, but as a celebrity,
he had a bit of a feud with, I think it was actually Cody Rhodes, who is now one of the big head honchos of AEW. And I wonder if a lot of the genesis of this project came from that, because Cody Rhodes very much, he is a consummate professional, and he is someone who understands the cinematic desire for professional wrestling, and him working with an actor who, like him or not as an actor, he put in the effort to learn how to do the kind of like the fishbone thing where he's kind of like free lifting himself up and all of that stuff. He put the physical effort into it, and having someone like that in a role like this where it is very physically taxing as well, I think that is a marriage of good intentions at the very least.
Stephen Amell actually broke his back doing one of the stunts in the first episode. I think it goes. I mean, like if there's a old argument, isn't it fake? It's scripted, but it's not fake. These are real moves. They're really jumping off things and falling down and taking bumps. And the bumps they take look good. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not Ric Flair versus Ricky Steamboat good, but like the bumps look good enough. They look very convincingly like semi-professional wrestlers in a rural promotion, as good as the kind of stuff you probably see here in Melbourne, by guys who aren't on television every day of the week. So, I mean, that's an important part of this. So if you like wrestling, they're not talking down to you. They're respecting their subject matter. They work well in the ring. It's pretty decent. Now, if you don't like professional wrestling, just remember, the good thing for you is it's not really about professional wrestling. There is wrestling in it. They are wrestlers, but it's about more than that. There is a really interesting story building here about family and these two brothers' relationship with each other and the wider world. And I don't want to spoil it for you because I think it's worth checking out. I liked it very much.
I think it's definitely got me interested to see where it goes. The one real criticism that I have for the show, just on a personal level, is I do feel like tonally it's very heavy, very heavy.
It takes itself very seriously.
Yeah, and I kind of think I get what you're trying to go for, but you're being a little ham-fisted for it. But
just to back up what you were saying about Cody Rhodes, the title of episode 2 is Dusty Finish. So those who aren't aware, Cody Rhodes is the son of one of the most famous and successful professional wrestlers of all time, Dusty Rhodes. Not only was he an actual professional wrestler, he was also a behind-the-scenes guy who used to what they call book matches, which is basically to write the storylines and say, you're going to win tonight over this guy in this particular way. And so he was extremely famous for it and extremely influential at doing it. And one of his most famous creations is something called a Dusty Finish. So, look, if you really want to go down the rabbit hole, I'm sure you can Google it and they'll tell you what it is. But that's a very knowing wink at Cody Rhodes' dad.
Absolutely, yes. No, I really enjoyed it. I do like how it's building. I just hope that they have confidence going forwards that they can allow a little bit of breath into the show.
Yeah, for sure. It's an 8-episode run, so hopefully it won't overstay its welcome. I'm going to be following it throughout, so I'll keep everyone up to date.
Cool.
As we go through it, do you think you'll watch another episode or two?
I'm definitely going to watch at least one more for sure. I like Stephen Amell. I like his work ethic for sure. I still think he has a lot to prove to be a good actor, but he always seems to put himself into his roles. I think he's just got to find something that really matches. And the way that he did a lot of training for his feud with Cody Rhodes, and I think that speaks to a personal passion for him. I think this is very much a passion project for him. So I want to support that. I want to see how he goes.
Cool.
Yeah.
What else is
do you mind
sorry?
I was just going to say, do you mind if I talk about my new show?
I was just about to invite you to talk about your new show.
So my new show is another Netflix show. It is brand new cherry flavor.
What an odd name for a TV show.
And it's an odd show. The best way you can describe it is a lot of people online have been describing it as David Lynchian and Twin Peaksy. And I definitely get where they're going for with that. But at the same time, it's got more of a twisted horror kind of element to it. For those not in the know, Lisa Nova, an aspiring film director in the sun-drenched but steamy world of 1990s Los Angeles, embarks on a mind-altering journey of supernatural revenge that gets nightmarishly out of control. That is a very cursory example of what this show is. Just got to quickly make a note of the time there. Time codes are important, folks.
See, it's got some interesting casts here. We have Catherine Keener popping up in this. It's always good to see Catherine Keener out and about and doing things. Of course, an Academy Award winner.
Yes.
Catherine Keener, of course, for our... she was not... Oh, she was nominated for an Oscar for Being John Malkovich,
yes,
which, of course, was directed by Spike Jonze. And Rosa Salazar in the main role as Lisa. And probably best known for Alita Battle Angel.
Yes. And it's got a few other kind of faces that you'll look at and go, I think I remember them from something, but no one particularly big. Like the other main character is played by Eric Lange, who plays the character of Lou. He was in, he's been in Narcos, he was in Lost. He's popped in and out, so you might kind of look at him and go, I kind of remember him, but he's lost behind this long gray hair, kind of similar to mine, but with this beard as well. And he's quite transformative in the role. This is a really unique show because it does definitely start off very David Lynch, very, very Twin Peaksy. Rosa Salazar's character, Lisa, she finally comes to LA. You find out that this has been a thing because she meets up, she stays with a friend called Code, and she is in town trying to push her short film called Lucy's Eye, which is like a horror movie. And you never, throughout the first couple of episodes, you see little bits of it, and it looks like a very typical student film. It's black and white. It's a woman in a house. There's people coming to the thing, but you see more of the reactions of it. And I remember I got you to watch, maybe back when we were still doing a G&T podcast, one of the Masters of Horror show. And there was one.
Yeah. I remember the title. I remember watching it, but I can't remember what it was about.
Yeah. But there was a little element of that where you never see the movie in Cigarette Burns that is so horrifying and life-changing, but it's a similar kind of feel to that. You see these people, and there's always the ending. Everyone's always talking about the ending. It's like, how did she film that? I don't know. You never know what it was she filmed, and you never see it up until the second half of the show. I'm only about 2/3 of the way through. But she somehow, the character of Lou, who's a bit of a washed up producer, finds this tape and watches it and has a meeting with her and offers to produce it and get her to be director, because she only wants to sell it if she can direct it. And then over the first 2 episodes, it's basically about the two of them, kind of him teaching her how to sell herself to other producers to get funding. If she wants to be the director, she has to know how to sell herself, and she has difficulty with that. And then, unsurprisingly, he stabs her in the back and goes around and grabs a music video director who is friends with her to direct it, and kind of just throws her out in her ass. So she meets at one of these parties, she meets Catherine Keeler's character, Boro. And she just kind of says, oh, I can hurt people for you if you need me to. And so one night, after finding out that her movie has effectively been stolen from her, she tracks down Boro and says, yep, I want to set his world on fire. I want him to suffer. And this brings in the supernatural element. and it's kind of a little bit voodoo, dark magic-y sort of stuff, and it slowly but surely spirals from there. And Catherine Keeler is fucking amazing in this role. She is just so casual with everything. Like, it, I'm sure that there's a lot of this inspired by peyotes and just how that can kind of bring so much of yourself to the surface, and all of the stuff that peyotes is legendarily known for. And each episode, this kind of, it just keeps on getting more and more twisted, the whole thing. And it seems really like the character of Lisa is very, very, very selfish, actually, in the way that she expects everything. And she's harsh and kind of cruel in many ways. She's cold. And this revenge, this mystical revenge that Boro has promised, it starts off with Lou getting the hiccups, and Lisa sees this and she just goes back to him and is like, what the fuck is this? He's got the fucking hiccups. My life is going to shit. He's being projected these amazing numbers and projection and positivity and everything. Why is his life getting good and my life getting bad? So she just keeps on upping the ante all the time on this revenge. And she's not even being subtle about it or sly. She is telling everyone. And it just keeps, every character just keeps on getting more tightly wound at the same time as being completely undone. And it's really fascinating. I don't know where this is going to end. I don't know how this is going to end. But everything about it is very well done. The production value is fantastic. The performances are really good. And there's the Lynchian level of weird shit. Like, kind of every 24 hours after this curse has been put into effect, Lisa throws up a newborn kitten, and someone who works for Catherine Keeler just turns up, takes the kitten. And at one point she asks, what do you do with these kittens? And she went, oh, you don't care. You won't miss them. You don't care. And it's like, what? Okay. It's a complete mindfuck. It's really good.
Is this a bingey show? It's dumped all at once, or is it going week by week?
It was dumped all at once, yes. I don't know if I would recommend binge watching it. I binged the first half of the season, and it is more-ish because you want answers to what happens in the previous episode, and you do generally. The story continuously progresses, but you don't get too many answers. But at the same time, you don't necessarily feel like, oh, for fuck's sake, just tell me something, because it just keeps on twisting and turning and getting more and more fucked up. There's a point in the first half of the series where Lisa says to Boro, I don't want to keep throwing up kittens. And Boro, just as she's leaving, she's like, okay, no more throwing up kittens. And the way she says it, the way the story has set it up, you know it's going to be something fucking worse. And what happens, I can guarantee it has never been put on film before, and everything that happens afterwards is weird as fuck.
It's kind of like the parable of the monkey's paw, right?
It seems to be going along those lines, but not quite. But
it's a bit like, that the episode of The Simpsons, like, I must tell you that it carries a terrible curse. That's bad. But you get a free bread. That's good. You get to share the toppings. That's good. The toppings contain potassium benzoate. That's
the
bad.
frozen yogurt is monosodium glutamate.
That's that kind of angle, right? Like you might get one thing, be giving you taking, right? Or there's a Rick and Morty episode about the same thing.
Yeah, it's a little bit of that, but it's more nebulous, and I think it's going to end up being more of a parable of patience is a virtue. So my prognosis for Lisa is not looking good. I don't think there's going to be a season 2 carrying on with Lisa. I do not think she's going to survive. That is just me guessing because I don't know. My superpower is not working right now, and I'm enjoying it for that. And if a show can do that, I'm willing to see to the end because they've done something that does not happen often.
It's like that part in Superman 2 where Superman has his powers taken away and he gets beaten up at the truck stop.
Yes. I feel like my brain is being beaten up.
You are mortal again.
I know, it's weird. It's a really weird sensation, but I am enjoying it. That's the main point of it.
Absolutely, that's the part probably most important. And just again, it's on Netflix.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's on Netflix, and I will say that the way that it delivers story, you'll get a taste of it in the first episode, but you need to watch 2 episodes before you'll be able to render a verdict of if you want to invest more time. So it is a bit of a time sink. I think each episode is about 45 minutes long, maybe 50 minutes. So it is a bit of an investment just to really get a good grounding of, will I want to watch this or not? If you've watched stuff and enjoyed stuff like American Horror Story or Twin Peaks or any of that kind of more twisted kind of thing, you'll probably enjoy this. But if you want a more traditional narrative storytelling, this is not the show for you. And it is kind of gross.
Yeah, it does not pass the shade test.
Yes and no. It's not violent. I mean, there is a little bit of violence in it, but it's not gory violence. It's not lots of blood, but it's creepy. So
maybe borderline.
Yeah.
Beware. Enter at your own risk.
Yeah, very much so. Now, what would you like to talk about?
The last thing I've got tonight is a new series is airing here in Australia on Amazon Prime, 9 Perfect Strangers.
Okay.
Now, in the States, I believe it's airing on Hulu. It's weird how Hulu stuff sometimes ends up all over the shop here. I was looking at something earlier from Hulu that's going to Disney, so I guess it's just whoever buys it. 9 stressed city dwellers visit a boutique health and wellness resort that promises healing and transformation. The resort's director is a woman on a mission to reinvigorate their tired minds and bodies.
Okay.
Created by, amongst other people, David E. Kelly, fairly familiar name for some people out there. If I'm not mistaken, he was the man behind NYPD Blue back in the 90s. LA Law, The Practice, Ally McBeal. Sorry, no, it was not NYPD Blue. I'm sorry about that. But LA Law was the one I was thinking of. Boston Legal, Boston Public,
Big Little Lies, which has been very popular.
Chicago Hope, Picket Fences, Doogie Howser. The guy's a TV legend. And I believe it's based on the same writer's material, author, who wrote. Is this based on a book? I believe it's based on that author also wrote the book for Big Little Lies, which is based on.
Okay.
Interestingly, I know Nicole Kidman was in Big Little Lies as well. And of course, she is the star of this show as well. Never saw Big Little Lies, so I can't comment on its quality. We have one hell of a cast for a TV show here. Like, this is AAA quality casting here. So we have, like I said, Nicole Kidman as Marsha, who is the Russian, a wunderkind who runs this, wellness resort. Not sure I really buy into Nicole's Russian accent, but it's good enough, and it's Nicole Kidman, so you're usually distracted enough by
Should
that.
have practice with birthday girl.
We have Melissa McCarthy, the exquisite Michael Shannon. I don't think Michael Shannon gets enough credit. He is a fucking great actor who was so far and away the best thing about The Man of Steel. It's not funny. He was a great Zod. Great Zod.
That's good.
Luke Evans, who's be one of those guys whose faces you'd be like, hey, you're that dude. He's been in stuff, including Fast and Furious.
He played
6.
Dracula, and he was also in the Fast and the Furious movies.
Asha Keddy, who is a very well-known Australian actress, if you're in Australia, you know her from stuff like Offspring, Love My Way, Paper Giants. If you're not Australian, you'll have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. Samara Weaving, again, an Australian actress, so you probably, non-Australians may recognize that she has done a little bit of work outside the country in 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. Bill and Ted Face the Music she was in last year, so you might recognize her from that. That was one I recognized her from. And a link between our 2 topics. How exciting.
Yes.
Manny Jacinto plays Yao in this, and he's also in Brand New Cherry Flavor. But probably for me, the best place I knew him from was he was in The Good Place. As Jason.
Of course he was. That's where I knew him from.
The other big name in here is, but you're definitely going to recognize is Bobby Cannavale. I'm pronouncing Cannavale. He was in Ant-Man, Blue Jasmine, The Station Agent. He's just, again, Mr. Robot. He'll be one of those people who'll be, oh yeah, you would definitely know his face. So amazing talent. The most hilarious start to the show is that they're all driving to this resort, this wellness resort.
Right.
And more than 1 or 2 of them, one of them goes past a sign that says such and such welcome to such and such California. And you're like, really? There's no fucking way that's California. That is Australia. I don't even need anybody to tell me this was made in Australia. In the first 30 seconds, I'm like, oh, that was filmed in Australia. That's not California. That's Australia, right? It's like, I always go back to the when I first saw Ghost Rider, the Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider film, and he's driving down the freeway in Texas, and you're like, that's not Texas, that's the Yuyangs. I know where that is. So exactly where that is. You know, they shot that here in Melbourne, of course, and that's probably the only good part about it. And you know, I guess it's probably. I mean, you obviously are familiar with from your time living in the UK. But generally, I guess the difference is that if you shoot a film in the UK in London on its location, you're not pretending it's somewhere else.
Yeah. Australia and Canada, they are the stand-in countries. You film there for anywhere else in the world, apparently.
And maybe Americans would just see it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, no, straight away. I'm like, that's not California. That is Australia. And yes, I was correct. This was meant to be shot in California, but production was transferred here last year due to the unknown virus of unspecified origin. But, kind of shut things down in the States. And, I think we all knew Melissa McCarthy was here last year, but she did a bit in new Thor movie. And
oh yes, that's right.
And she was obviously out here for this. Now I wonder if people like Asha Ketty were supposed to be in this, or they just had to pick up some local talent to get production that cheaper or something. But I don't know. She doesn't work much in the US, but she's very well known here. So you're talking huge talent, huge cast in the show, very well known faces, and we see them all sort of making their way to this wellness resort. We all start to learn a little bit about their different stories. So Melissa McCarthy is a formerly successful novelist who's fallen on slightly harder times. Her latest novel has been rejected by her publisher. It's getting bad reviews. Okay. She's kind of her life falling in a heap. Michael Shannon and Asha Ketty are there with their daughter, played by Grace Van Patten, and they are a lower class. They are a more working class couple, but they're basically still recovering from the death of their 17-year-old son recently, who is their daughter Zoe's twin brother, who committed suicide, and so they're still very much a family in mourning for that. But we have Samara Weaving and her partner Ben, played by Melvin Gregg. Sorry, Melvin, I don't know your previous work. You're not as famous as the other people. But they are, I guess, she's an Instagram influencer type person, and he is a nouveau riche, if you will, depending on the lottery. And their relationship is under serious strain. We have Luke Evans, who's I'm not quite sure what he's doing. His agenda is, but he has an agenda. He's like he's there to expose them or something. We're not quite sure. Bobby Cannavale is a formerly famous football player with now a drug addiction. So through the episode, we start to learn that Marsha, Nicole Kidman's character, has offered Michael Shannon and Asha Ketty the Marconi's Marconi family a significant discount to be able to let them afford to come. And we also learned that she specifically curates the groups of people who will attend her spa in order to meet whatever mysterious goal she has. Because we quickly very much learn that this is not your attending, yoga classes and, hydrotherapy and, aromatherapy classes in between, movie nights kind of. It's not your mama's health resort. There's something enigmatic about Marsha, and there's something very mysterious going on at her health resort, but we're not quite sure what her agenda is or exactly what's going on with it. But it's all we know is it's not what the people going there expected, and it's not what we expected. And the show itself is a bit of a mystery. Is it a critique or a piss take on the wellness industry? Is it a whodunit? Is it a mystery? Is it Lost? Is this where the people on the island star came from? Don't know. But that's part of the fun of it. It's kind of, for me anyway, it's keeping me guessing about what exactly is going on. And it's not all, Marsha is the puppet master pulling strings. She's got shit going on in her life as well that we don't fully understand yet, that we're getting hinted at. And we're like, okay, what's going on there? So she's not like this all-powerful, all-knowing, person pulling the strings of everything. There's stuff that she's not aware of either. She's got her own struggles, which we're curious to find out about. So, look, we are 4 episodes in as of today. I think the 4th episode just aired in the States today. The first 3 episodes were landed on Prime last week. So I assume the 4th one's probably up now. I think it's going week to week now. I think it's an 8-part series. So it's a short run series. I'm intrigued. I was really not sure this would be for me. This is not the kind of thing I would normally enjoy, but I'm enjoying the quality of the writing, the acting, and a little bit like you with your brand new cherry flavor of a very different style of show, with different content. But there's just something you just want to keep watching going, I want to find out what's going on. I want to know what's happening here. No, it's not gross or anything like cherry flavor, but like I want to find out what Marsha's game is. Why the fuck did she pick all these people here? I mean, indeed, I haven't even mentioned the most intriguing character of the show. Is another one of the not one of the better known actors, played by Carmel, played by Regina Hall. Actually, I think I have heard of her before. I don't exactly.
I've heard of Regina Hall.
She was in Scary Movie. I don't know why I know her, but she
Law-abiding citizens. Okay.
Not sure. But she plays a character called Carmel. And she's kind of this passive-aggressive, repressed housewife type character, kind of. But we're starting to see more of her come out of her shell a little bit as the show's gone on. You're like, actually, I think her story, she might be the most interesting character in the show. Like, I want to see what she does. What we've been hinted at so far, because she's I guess that's a part of it. Almost so many people in this show are not what they seem, which is a bit of a tired trope. I'll pay, but it's enough to keep me interested in watching at the moment.
When it's done well, it's not a trope; it's a tool.
And things are tropes because they work, right? Like people do them because people enjoy them. Or they keep working. It's why they. What do they say? So there's only 7 different stories in the world or something like that. And
they're all about Jesus.
They are about Jesus. Everything's about Jesus. And in this case, Jesus is Melissa McCarthy's husband, Ben Falcone. Because he's in the show as well.
All right. Well, there you go. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the show.
It's a full show this week. It's a regular
full show. 2 hours, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We do hope you enjoy, and we do want to hear from you. So don't forget, you can go over to twitch.tv/thefriedbrain to join in the chat, the moderated chat live every Wednesday at 7:30. We can be found again on Facebook and on YouTube. Just search for Armchair Producers and you'll be able to find us. We are on Twitter at The Fried Brain, at Evil Trav. If you have got any recommendations for a movie that I could torture my co-host with, I will happily hear from you.
You need a reason to do that. This was not done without cause. This is not done without
I
cause.
can make up a reason.
Yeah.
I know it's hard because you're practically perfect in every way, Miss Mary Poppins.
Well, I have staff.
Yeah, he has a team. I have a dog that I'm the team member of.
And I will have to keep my nose clean then to avoid an unfortunate fate.
Yes. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be going on to The Discovery on Netflix for our chain movie. We talked about Her. I talked about Mannequin on the Move. We caught up on What If, Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, Heels, brand new cherry flavor, and finished up with 9 Perfect Strangers. Thank you so much. We will see you next week. Good night.
Good night.